Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing. And today we've got another combination that one of you guys requested for us to try out. So I had to bring it out here to see what it could do because I'm thinking we should see some pretty decent results from it. But I don't know. As always with this choke, it's a little bit of something different than usual. So it could really help our pattern. It could really hurt our pattern, or it could just be kind of meh, in the middle average. I really don't know. We're just going to have to test it and see what happens. But as for the shell we've got out here today, I brought out some more of the Federal Power-Shok Magnum buckshot shells. These ones are the 12 gauge, 3 inch, 15 pellet load of double-aught buck, moving about 10 feet per second. And for being a pretty basic overall Federal Power-Shok type of shell, these loads have done pretty decently across the board for us so far in the few times we've tested them. Definitely not quite down in like the flight control type of territory, but plenty good enough for a average deer hunter out to 40 to 50 yards or so. But how can they actually do through today's choke? That's going to be the big question. And as for the setup we've got out here today, I brought out the Remington 1187 here with this choke. This is the Patternmaster Black Mamba. It's a 690 constriction, and as you can see those spirals on it, it does have Patternmaster's kind of gas over constriction technology stuff in here, which sometimes really helps our patterns, and sometimes, depending on how the shell and wad and stuff like that are loaded, it really kind of makes our pattern just go all over the place. So how is it going to do with these Power-Shoks today? I don't know. The constriction right in that full choke type of range should be pretty decent for us. I think it's just going to come down to the gas over constriction and how does it play with those shells. But as for the test today, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph as well. And I've got the templates out here that we can lay up over our target and get a little bit better of a reference point as to how it actually patterned when we go down and take a look at our results. So let's get you guys a view of this target and take this shot and see just what kind of a pattern we're able to get out of the 15 pellet Power-Shok double-aught buck shells through this Patternmaster Black Mamba 690 today. Okay, so that shell gave us 1169 through the chrono. The box claim is 1210, so yeah, we are a little bit under that. From what I can remember, these shells typically are just a touch above their claim, like 1225, 1230. So maybe that gas over constriction let a little bit of gas past our actual shot cup there and slowed us down just a tiny little bit. It's a possibility, but 1169 is still within the realm of reason for these shells. But how did they actually pattern down there at 40 yards? Let's go take a look and see what we got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. I do think we were just a touch high as compared to my point of aim there, but we still had all 15 pellets on the paper, and this is definitely not a terrible pattern whatsoever. Our overall spread here is kind of left to right, that bottom left pellet over to that far right pellet. It gave us 20 inches at 40 yards, so not quite flight control type of territory, but still plenty good enough. As far as the vertical pattern goes, it's about 14 and a quarter inches tall. So definitely not bad overall right here for size. Now I am seeing a little bit of a void through the middle of our pattern. As you can see, we have a handful of pellets down low as well as a handful up high with a little bit of a gap right through the middle. So I don't necessarily like to see that. I wish it was a little bit more even, but that's kind of nitpicking, I suppose, when you have 15 pellets of double-aught buck all within a 20-inch spread down here at 40 yards. That's still plenty good enough to do whatever you would need it to do. But still, these shells haven't been terrible performers by any means. They seem to bounce right around the 20 to 24 inch range, so they did perfectly fine, all things considered, through this Black Mamba 690 here. Doesn't look like the gas over constriction really messed our pattern up too much, which it can do from time to time. So it looks like if you had this combination, you would be pretty decent off as far as a pattern goes. But let's throw a couple templates up here and get a little bit better of a reference as to how they actually performed. Okay, so here's our 10-inch circle, and for a 10-inch circle, I will give it the benefit of the doubt and actually put it where the central portion of the pattern is instead of right over our actual point of aim. But as we can see here, we have a definite 4 pellets within there with the 5th one up at the top just kind of halfway sneaking in. So 4.5 pellets, we'll call it. Definitely not too bad for a loaded double-aught buck. Seems like the 4 pellet, maybe 5 pellet is pretty average for a decent performing buckshot shell. But as you you can see here, we definitely have a stripe across the middle there of that core where there's no pellets. I would like to see at least 1 or 2 pellets kind of filling that area in, since it is our core. But let's throw the deer template up and get it lined up with our point of aim and see what it would have looked like if you would have actually taken this shot out in the woods hunting. Alright, well, here's our deer template, and as you can see, we have a front leg at the bottom. His neck just starts off to the right side, and we have 9 pellets out of the 15 actually on the deer template here, with a pretty wide spread, quite a bit of leeway to work with as well. Now, the rest of them that we are missing are not far off the template. There's a couple just above the deer's back up there behind the template, which I think if we actually raised it up a little bit and centered it with the pattern, we would have a couple more pellets on the deer. But if you would have actually taken this specific shot out there in the field, you would have gotten 9 pellets on the deer and very clearly been coming home to fill the freezer with him, that's for sure. So looking pretty decent here overall as for a spread in a hunting scenario. But let's throw the hog template up for just a second as well for you hog hunters. I think it's going to be pretty well the same story, but we'll take a look at it real quick just to see what kind of results we got there as well. Okay, so here's the hog template, and it's pretty well the same story, but as you can see, we do have all 15 pellets within the template. A couple of them are right on the edge to where if I move this template just a little bit one way or the other, we would have, 12, 13, 14 of them instead of all 15. But still, as you can see, you've absolutely covered that hog with buckshot pellets. He's not going very far on you. So definitely looking pretty good here as far as the hunting pattern goes. I'd like to see a couple of those pellets a little bit more evenly spaced through that core area, but when you have 15 of them flying down there, you're definitely going to get into something vital, that's for sure, with a pattern like that. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the best pattern we've ever seen, but it's far from the worst as well. I wouldn't be scared to take that out to 40, 45, maybe 50 yards on a deer or hog or something like that. So definitely looking pretty decent as for a hunting pattern, I'd say. Okay, and here's the wad and the little gas seal from that shell. Definitely nothing too fancy to see with the gas seal, but it does kind of line up with the grooves on the bottom of that wad there and sit in that shell, something like that. But as for the wad itself here, it is kind of a half-length wad almost. It's not even a 2 3/4 inch style wad. It's kind of these shorty half-length type of stuff. Definitely pretty interesting as far as design goes. You don't see these short wads very often, but hey, it seems to work at least to some extent for these shells. There's obviously nothing down in there. It's not perfectly straight coming out of there, but still plenty good enough. Definitely nothing too weird to see. Just a little bit of an interesting design out of these shells, I suppose. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern right there? It's definitely a pretty solid looking hunting pattern. It's definitely not the ultimate, best, most perfect pattern we've seen. It's not flight control territory type of deal, but still, that is plenty usable enough for you out to that 40, 45, 50 yard range for a deer or hog or anything like that. That's going to get the job done all day long. Now, if we want to get really, really picky about it, sure, we do have that little bit of a void across the middle there that I'd like to see a couple pellets fill in and make it a little bit more even, but that's just kind of luck of the draw sometimes with these buckshot shells. Still, overall, with a 20-inch spread, you're going to be just fine on anything you would use it for. But as always, leave your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested this combination or the Black Mamba choke with buckshot or Power-Shok 15 pellet load? And if so, what has been your results with them? Would you hunt with a pattern like that? And are there any other buckshot shells you might want to see through that choke, or any other chokes you might want to see the Power-Shok shells through? Let me know all that down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we've got the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.